Spider-Man has always been one of Marvel's most beloved heroes, but the MCU took Peter Parker on a journey unlike anything we'd seen before. When we first meet him in Captain America: Civil War, he's just a kid, excited, nervous, and still figuring out what it means to be a hero. By the time we reach No Way Home, he's lost everything, forced to rebuild his life from scratch. This isn't just a story of power and responsibility. It's a story of growth, sacrifice, and identity. Today, we're breaking down how Spider-Man evolved in the MCU, from Tony Stark's protege to a hero who truly stands on his own. Peter is introduced differently from past versions. No origin story, no Uncle Ben's death, just a 15-year-old kid suddenly pulled into a war. Unlike Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield's versions, this Peter Parker isn't already an experienced crime fighter. He's talented, sure, but he's still figuring things out. From the moment he steps onto the battlefield in Civil War, his excitement is obvious. He's in awe of the Avengers and treating the whole thing like a once-in-a-lifetime experience. His enthusiasm makes him stand out, but it also highlights his inexperience. While he shows impressive strength, catching Winter Soldier's metal arm like it's nothing, he lacks the tactical awareness of the older heroes. Cap overpowers him through strategy, and in the end, Tony has to pull him from the fight before he gets hurt. At this stage, Peter sees being Spider-Man as something fun, almost like a game. He's not dealing with life-or-death stakes yet, and he's not making any real sacrifices. He's just a kid with powers, excited to be part of something bigger. But that naive outlook won't last long. His time in Civil War is just the beginning of his journey, and soon, he'll have to learn that being a hero means a lot more than just having powers. After his brief taste of the Avengers' life in Civil War, Parker is eager for more. He spends Spider-Man Homecoming desperately trying to prove that he's ready for bigger things, checking his phone for missions from Stark and skipping out on responsibilities to chase criminals. But Tony sees the bigger picture. Peter is still just a kid, and throwing him into major battles could get him killed. The problem is, Parker doesn't see it that way. He thinks that if he's not fighting alongside the team, he's not really a hero. That mindset leads him to take reckless risks. He tries to take down Vulture on his own, ignoring Stark's warnings, and nearly causes a disaster when his interference splits the Staten Island ferry in half. Tony takes away his suit as punishment, delivering the tough lesson. If you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. This is the moment where Peter realizes that being a hero isn't about flashy tech or getting recognition. It's about responsibility. His defining moment comes when Vulture drops a building on him. Trapped, alone, and terrified, Peter panics, calling for help like the kid he still is. But then, something shifts. He sees his reflection in the water, remembers Stark's words, and finds the strength to lift the rubble off himself. This is where he truly becomes Spider-Man, not because of his powers, but because he refuses to give up, even when no one is there to save him. By the end, he proves he's grown. He defeats Vulture without help and, more importantly, turns down an official spot on the Avengers, choosing to stay grounded. He's finally learned that being Spider-Man isn't about status or proving himself. It's about doing the right thing, no matter how small the act. By the time Infinity War begins, Peter Parker is no longer the overeager kid trying to prove himself. He's already made mistakes, learned from them, and is now more confident. The moment he sees Tony chasing after a spaceship, he jumps in without hesitation, defying orders once again. In his mind, he's just doing what he should do. But this time, he's stepping into something far beyond anything he's faced before. Despite holding his own against Thanos' forces, Peter's inexperience is still apparent. He's fighting alongside some of the universe's strongest heroes, but unlike them, he doesn't fully understand the stakes. When Thanos snaps his fingers, he learns the cost of heroism in the most painful way possible. His death isn't quick or heroic. It's slow, agonizing, and terrifying. His "I don't want to go" is one of the most heartbreaking moments in the MCU, not just because he's afraid, but because, for the first time, he realizes he's powerless. Then comes Endgame. When he returns, he expects things to go back to normal. But Tony's sacrifice changes everything. He may have looked up to Tony as a mentor, but in many ways, he also saw him as a safety net, someone who would always be there to guide him. Now, that safety net is gone. After the events of Endgame, Peter is left without his mentor, and for the first time, he has to figure out what it means to be Spider-Man on his own. Well, not exactly. Instead, he just wants a break, to go on a school trip and confess his feelings to MJ. But no matter how much he tries to avoid it, the weight of being Spider-Man keeps pulling him back. When Fury recruits him to help fight the so-called elementals, he latches onto Quentin Beck. Trusting him feels like the easy way out, so much so that he hands over Edith, Stark's powerful AI system, without a second thought. This is Peter at his most vulnerable. He doubts himself so much that he's willing to give away the responsibility Tony left him. Of course, it all backfires. Beck is a fraud, manipulating Peter's trust to gain control of the technology. When Mysterio nearly kills him with his illusions, he is completely broken. But this is the turning point. He has to be his own hero. The moment he builds his own suit, using his own instincts instead of following someone else's plan, is when he truly steps into that role. He takes control of his identity, but just as he starts to feel like he's figured it all out, Mysterio delivers one final blow. Exposing his identity to the world not only destroys his personal life, but also sets up the biggest challenge he's ever faced. If No Way Home does one thing, it's stripping Peter down to his core. He's at his lowest, dealing with the fallout of Mysterio exposing his identity. His life spirals out of control, putting his friends and family in danger. In desperation, he turns to Doctor Strange, hoping magic can fix his problems. But when the spell goes wrong, villains from past Spider-Man universes appear, and he has to face something he's never dealt with before, deciding the fate of people beyond his own world. The defining moment of his arc comes when Aunt May dies, delivering the iconic line, "With great power, there must also come great responsibility." Up until now, he had faced hardship, but never something this personal. Stark's death affected him, but May's death is different. This is his burden alone, a direct result of his choices. It nearly breaks him, pushing him toward revenge. But meeting the other Spider-Man gives him the perspective he needs. He realizes that pain and loss don't have to define him in a destructive way. By the end, Peter makes the hardest decision of his life, allowing Strange to erase him from everyone's memory to protect those he loves. The final scenes show a completely different side of him. He moves into a tiny apartment, sews his own suit, and swings into the city. And that's the evolution of Tom Holland's Spider-Man, one of the most well-rounded and compelling arcs in the MCU. From a wide-eyed rookie to a hero who truly understands the weight of responsibility, Peter Parker has grown in ways we could never have expected. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more Marvel content. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.